Okay, and we are live. And well, I'm here. This is Mugdha Pradhan, and today Niraj is with me. And thank you so much for coming on and doing this, Niraj. For the people who don't know who Niraj Naik is, I'll quickly just introduce you. So Niraj is the founder of Soma Breath. I met Niraj at the Life Plugin Summit in Goa, I think, way before lockdowns and all of this nonsense began. And I experienced his breathwork session firsthand. He'd conducted one session for us, and then I saw how I felt after that. And in fact, it's then that I actually went in and learned more about who he was. And he used to be a pharmacist. We'll go more into that as well. He used to be a pharmacist, and now he's an entrepreneur. He's used all his passion for breath work, for music, for like whatever he knows about being a pharmacist, yoga, holistic health, DJing, and he's all brought that together in one unique package that he helps people with. And with the Soma Breath, so I don't know much about what you do as a renegade pharmacist, but with Soma Breath, I know that you're also teaching people how to be breathwork instructors and just generally bringing healing around in the world. So that's Neeraj. And why am I doing this webinar with him? Well, I'm really tired of the media narrative of like scaring the shit out of people and like, just doing this thing about like people are really afraid of each other. People are afraid of their own bodies. They don't understand how their body can heal itself. And I really think it's time we change that narrative. Instead of it being all doom and gloom and fear, I think it's time people like me and Neeraj came together and just kind of do a reverse narrative and give it to them in their faces and tell them that here we are wellness warriors who have learned how to heal our own bodies, and not just ours but heal other people's bodies also. And we just start creating these safe spaces for people in the world so that they can learn what it means to really begin to heal themselves and bring a balanced life in, just create a life of balance. So that's why I'm doing this webinar, and I'm really grateful, Neeraj, that you agreed to do this. Thank you so much for giving your time. I know you're a very, very busy person. So that's the context, and let's just get started with like I'm sure the audience would want to know you a bit better. So what's the backstory? Like, how did you even begin to do breath work and Soma breath? I know you're a traditionally trained pharmacist. You actually worked as a community pharmacist. So what's the story? What really happened?
Okay, great. Firstly, pleasure to meet you. And actually, I just realised I'm gonna have to put on my headphones, so I don't get this echo. Okay, is that all right? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Good stuff. So actually, last time we met was in India at this amazing event that was in Goa. It was so much fun. So since that time, so many things have happened. Like, that was like such a amazing experience coming to India for the first time after a long time and seeing this emerging movement that's happening in India itself, and people going back to their roots and really starting to understand the ways that helps you make you healthy and happy, but that comes from going back to our ancestral roots, which India has such a wealth of a treasure chest of knowledge of. So actually, now I'm also witnessing here on this island right now a lot of fear as well, because we've had our first case ever of this COVID since the beginning. Well, I think there was one case, but that was ended up not being anything. But there's the first, and then I think since that there's been a few more actually, and so people have started to freak out. People are like, well, people are wearing masks on the beach, things like that. Or riding a motorbike, So it's strange things that we get driven to do when we have to follow the rules, and like you get disinfected now if you go into Macro, they spray you on the way in. So God knows, what's in those sprays, but yeah. So it's an interesting time, and going back to what your question is, I feel like everything I've gone through has been building up to this moment we're going through right now, because the world has an opportunity right now, because everyone's experienced the same thing all across the world at the same time, is to really either we've got to make a choice. It's a judgment day. Do we go, into doom and gloom, Armageddon type stuff, or do we have the biggest awakening of all time? And I've been plotting and planning myself for this moment, which I think has all come. So everybody who is into, liberty and truth and being fair, and then this is like one of the best times ever to be alive, in my opinion. So it's really exciting in that respect, but also it's very challenging as well. There's many people have suffered big time, either from loss of an illness, or sheer losing their business, losing their jobs, careers. So many big challenges are going on right now. And actually, I was doing a job back then as a pharmacist years ago, where I just felt this real dissatisfaction for firstly the healthcare system, but then just working in a corporation, I couldn't believe the kind of systems that people worked under. Like, it just didn't seem right. And there was a lot of frustration and tension within me. But what happened was one thing led to another. I started to go into learning about diet, nutrition, on how to help my patients get off the medications, because I could see people suffering so much. And those who actually took my advice, where I wrote these little healthy shopping lists, started to get better. Like simply just changing their diets from where most people are drinking fizzy drinks and eating processed foods to like just eating a whole food diet, where you cut out all of the factory-based foods. I call it the no factory diet. And I had amazing results with that. But then I got actually into a big corporation. I was going to carry out a service that could have helped a lot of people. But 6 months into it, it wasn't aligned with, what they were about. And, telling people not to drink Coca-Cola probably wasn't on their agenda. So that idea didn't work out in the end. And I felt like I had to go back to being a pharmacist. I worked really hard to get out of this job and do something better for humanity. But there was a lot of fear going back into that. But there was also a lot of anger at the system. I just couldn't believe it. And then I lost my connection with spirit, with God, completely. And that's when the disease kicked in. And then that is actually when I went really inward to heal myself from this chronic illness I had. I had this autoimmune condition called ulcerative colitis. And literally I was then housebound for a year. And you go to the toilet like 40 times a day. It's horrible, like bleeding. It's super nasty. So it was going through that healing journey where I regained my trust in the spirit, because I discovered actually a few things. Firstly, they say God stands for gift of desperation, but in my most like desperate moment, a lady came to my rescue, Swami Ambikananda, who's a yoga teacher, and she introduced me to Ayurveda, pranayama, yoga, and she said, "Look, you got a gift here. If you can heal yourself from this, you will be able to be a really strong role model for other people, with your passion and determination to help others." And she said, "You'll have an amazing story, of transformation." So that got me that changed my perception about my situation. I started to look at it more with hope, especially when I started to look at the new science, the quantum science and epigenetics of how we can heal, how we can recover. Because I was told by the doctor, you're going to be on drugs for the rest of your life. There's no cure for this. Diet makes no difference. Stress doesn't make any difference. So just take the pills. And this was this huge obese lady. So it was just so weird getting, this information from somebody who just didn't embody health at all. So luckily I met the Swami, and then I also then read some books, amazing books, like The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. He was also a pharmacist, but he studied Eastern mysticism and Ayurveda and all these alternative medicines, but he also was a Christian science. Like he was into Christianity and Christian science, and he merged the two things together and showed how similar they are, and how guided meditations are basically scientific prayers, and with breathing techniques you can really go deep into your unconscious mind through meditation and reprogram it like a computer. So this was just mind-blowing stuff, and I started to try it all out using affirmations and mantras, which you can just make up yourself. He demystified all this mantra stuff. He just basically said, look, whatever your statement you say with absolute conviction, if you really truly believe it, and you say it in this deep meditative state, you have the power to change your subconscious mind. Self-hypnosis, basically. So I started to use these techniques with music. I started to make music again, like meditation music, with brainwave frequencies for altering the states. So I got really curious about the mind and altered states of consciousness using the breath. And with pranayama, with certain techniques, you can quickly change your state and go into this healing parasympathetic state. So I started to go really deep into this, and then through Ayurveda, I figured out my diet that was right for me, because I was actually I'm very like Vata Pitta. At that time, I was everything was on fire. Ulcerative colitis is super fire energy, so you have to cool that fire down. But also the air, the Vata goes off. You go completely ungrounded with ulcerative colitis, and it affects the colon. So basically, with Ayurveda, you can prescribe yourself the right kind of diet. And I actually went from, changing my diet completely from what I thought was healthy to something completely different. And then I also discovered the substance called colostrum, which is the first milk from cow, bovine colostrum, which has remarkable healing benefits for the gut. And over the years, so much more science has backed up the evidence of this. And, like paleo diets for the gut health, especially digestive issues, and then using meditation and techniques for, reprogramming the unconscious mind. So there's more and more science that's emerged to support this. But what I did was I actually started to make my own techniques for getting into healing states based on my own system. And that helped me then create my own business I got out of the pharmacy and was just basically, we had an internet-based business, so I could travel anywhere. And that allowed me to just travel around the world. And I met amazing people on the way. I trained with a yogi who's a doctor in India, in Rishikesh, who's amazing. He has a hospital there where he treats patients with a lot of yoga and pranayama, which is mind-blowing. And he's called Prakash Science, The Medical Understanding of Yoga. It's an amazing book. You can check it out. And then also Wim Hof. I got to know Wim Hof quite well. We ended up like working together, and I went really deep into breathing techniques and the science of it. So that then got me into doing Soma breath, because I created an experience which is super transformational. We call it the Soma awakening experience. It's a very powerful breathwork experience. And it's based around rhythmic breathing and this revered technique of pranayama called kumbhaka, where you hold your breath in certain ways after a period of rhythmic breathing. And it has amazing healing benefits. So I started to do this with music all around workshops and events. And it took, basically it took me to Mind Valley events, where now I'm actually a Mind Valley author. And I did like these huge events with 400 people, in this big auditorium and massive screens, incredible stuff like that. And then festivals where you do it in the jungle, big, like 200-300 people events. Everyone's like breathing and dancing, because ecstatic dance became a part of this as well. And and it's just been an amazing journey, because I really believe if you get back into your body, if you learn how to raise your emotions, your quality, where you can operate at a higher vibration of emotion. So you don't operate in the fear states and anger states as often as you do in these heightened vibrations of like joy and passion. When you can transform that with this, what we call Soma breath techniques, that's like a way of life, that I think everyone should have. And it all comes from our ancient past. It all comes from what the tantric yogis used to do, these whirling dervishes, all of these ancient practices that would somehow change their state to connect to the spirit. So we've created this, but then so much more. Like we've basically demystified Ayurveda, demystified, how to do meditation and yoga, how it should have been done back from the ancient past. This is something I learned from Prakash Marsh, like how different traditional yoga is from yoga we do today. I could talk a bit more about the science, how all this stuff works, but basically in a nutshell, that's how we've got to Soma breath now.
Cool. Yeah. What a journey. And I've experienced both the ecstatic dance and the Soma breath work that you did at the summit where we were at that amazing event. And I think it was a 1 hour breath work thing that you'd done in the morning, one of the mornings. And I remember how transformational it felt and how phenomenal that entire experience was. What's the Renegade Pharmacist all about then?
So, yeah, great question. The Renegade Pharmacist was kind of a word. I got called a renegade in the when I was working in this corporation, because my ideas were quite, like for that time, like 2010, 2011, we still didn't know too much about sugar and the harm that it can cause. So I was coming up with, like information that was too much for these people to understand. That, like actually it's the sugar that makes people obese. It's what causes a lot of the health problems, and how like problematic processed foods really are. It's only hasn't been that long ago where people start to really worry about what they're consuming, like from factory-based foods, where corporations start to change the ingredients. So all of the things I was doing was quite renegade. But then when I actually went through the healing journey, I started to tell people that I'd healed myself from this autoimmune, and so many people reached out who had this autoimmune condition for help. So instead of like just having to repeat the story over and over, I made the renegadepharmacist.com, and I started to put all my information on there. And one day, one of my infographics I created about Coca-Cola that told my story about what I did in the pharmacy, in these supermarkets where there's a pharmacy, with changing people's diets, and getting them off fizzy drinks. I basically made this infographic, and it got picked up by mainstream like media channels, like pretty much every single one of them, even end up on Fox News, a story about it, because this infographic ended up being the most viral infographic, probably an article of around that time of its kind. It was insane. Like I had millions and millions of views. So that exploded my name as the Renegade Pharmacist. But I'm actually starting to move away from that. Like with Soma breath, I'm trying to leave the Renegade tag, because it can actually trigger people a bit. And with Soma, we're more about the community and bringing people together and uniting people. And, we can keep going against the system, right? Okay. But I think it's better to actually create your own system and focus on that and positive,
absolutely,
rather than constantly attacking. Yeah. In that way, I'm a renegade in a different way from the typical renegade who goes out and, is a bit hostile. I'm much more about bringing the peace. Yeah.
I completely get that perspective, because even with Thrive, that's what we've been attempting to do, that we build our own ecosystem. So we're creating a bubble of safety. Like you come here and you're safe, right? Instead of us trying to instigate you to go and fight with your doctor or like pick up fights with people, right? Because what's the point of doing that? That just releases so many counterproductive hormones in your bloodstream. That's going to create a cascade of poor health again, and it's really of no like of no use at all, right? So yeah, that
So
I really understand where you're coming from. I was like that even until last year. I was like even on social media fighting it out and like telling people off and stuff like that. And then I realized there's really no purpose to doing that, because in the end, if healing someone is the outcome that you want, it can be done in a much kinder, gentler, compassionate, loving, healing way than having to fight it out. Of course, the system exists. No one's denying that, but we don't have to go fight with them. We can pick our battles of wanting to really help one person at a time. So I really understand where you're coming from there. So a lot of people, so when I told people in the tribe we're doing this, a lot of them really wanted to know more. So they have, so what we've done in our program, we have a 3-month program and someone comes to us for whatever chronic health condition they have. And in the second week, we actually send them your 11-minute, the one that's on SoundCloud, right? We send them that one. And it's been incredible. Not one person has ever said that, oh, this didn't work for me. Right? Every single person has really experienced some or the other benefit, and we'll go deeper into like actual stuff that's happened with a lot of people. But when I told them, oh, Neeraj Naik's doing this, and they're like, oh, we want to know more. And like one of the questions that they had was, how does it really work, right? Like, what does it really do at a physical, mental, emotional level? The Soma breath work that you do, how is it that they end up feeling so good after even an 11-minute piece? So how does it really impact health at all these 3 levels, right? The physical, mental, emotional level.
amazing, yeah. I'll do my best to answer that in a way that everybody can understand. So firstly, like going back to what you're saying about like choosing our battles, right? There's only so many battles we can fight. Well, what I'm also looking at is actually creating results, because if you can create dramatic results in people, then it rubs off. People see it. And then the best way to actually create a change is by being the change, right? So that's what we're really focused on. And this one technique, this 11-minute track, has impacted so many people. It's incredible. And it's so simple. And it's so instant, right? Like within just 11 minutes, you can feel dramatically improved. And actually, that track is one of the final tracks I produced before I got well fully from the colitis. And so the track you're talking about is a music piece to it, which drives the whole thing along with a rhythm. And the music takes you also on a journey, like a hypnotic journey. So I found like, okay, original kind of music that was used for this sort of purpose could be like, firstly, it didn't sound that cool, right? It was a bit dated sounding, but it also missed out on some of the enhancements you could give to it, like using hypnotic rhythms to take people on a journey. And what they used to use was like brainwave entrainment, like beats that go that can be hypnotic, but it can be a little bit annoying for some people. But you could create the same rhythms that take you in a trance trip with just grooves of music, like arpeggiated guitars and riffs. So actually we started to make this music and to get into really deep meditation states. And then what I found was when you breathe, where you double your exhalation time, okay, when you breathe out more than you breathe in, okay, you turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, okay? So when you breathe out, you stimulate the parasympathetic. When you breathe in, you stimulate the sympathetic, okay? And that shows that there is a very intimate relationship with your breath and the autonomic nervous system. I can show you something really, maybe I'll just get this set up in a minute, but I can show you something cool with raising my heart rate and lowering my heart rate like magic. But basically before that, so the simple pattern is if you breathe out for twice the length of time as you breathe in, according to some studies that have been done on this, that ratio of breath where you double your exhale time is the optimum for getting optimum blood flow oxygenation of your body tissue oxygenation. So where you double your exhale time. But it's got to be in a rhythm that is not too fast. So around 10 breaths per minute or lower is good. Okay, you don't want to go too much higher than 12, 15 breaths per minute, because then you're getting into hyperventilation. But most people's average breath rate's around 8 to kind of 15 breaths per minute. If you can go lower, then you're like a yogi. So this rhythmic breathing pattern gets you into a very deep, hypnotic kind of altered state of consciousness. And during this time, you can use visualization techniques. So I actually use a simple one for that track, which is to witness the white light coming in and moving through you, and actually moving out the darkness from the pain or wherever the sickness is. So we use this like visualization of the white light. And according to the Christian Science techniques, they would use white light. Even in certain yogic meditations, they would use the visualization of white light. Even in Qigong, the white light is there. So there's something about that. So I came up with that pattern, and it works really well. It's an amazing way to just imagine you're being healed by like a spirit, a higher force, right? And it seems to connect you to that force. Just even, you don't even have to know how it works. Just it works. It's strange. So you just do that, and that takes you into these altered states. And then because you've breathed out more carbon dioxide than you normally would, it means you can hold your breath for longer periods of time. Okay. And when you, so it's carbon dioxide that triggers your brain to breathe again. So when you hold your breath after the final exhale, on a full exhale, you can hold your exhale breath retention for much longer. This is called Baya Kumbhaka, for much longer than you normally could. And what happens is, after a certain period of time, like around a minute of holding your breath, your heart rate slows down, and then so does your oxygen levels, and you start going into hypoxia. You go below 90% on the, I'll show you this machine here, right? You see it says 98%. 98 is the oxygen saturation. Okay, my heart rate,
Right.
my heart rate there is 82 beats per minute. So I'll show you something with that in a minute. But the oxygen saturation, when it goes down below 90, you start to trigger a state called intermittent hypoxia, which releases a cascade of positive stress hormones in your body that creates an adaptive change to low oxygen levels. Okay. What that means is that your body thinks it's running out of oxygen, so it goes into gear to adapt to that low oxygen environment. So you produce more red blood cells, your capillaries wake up, you get vasodilation, especially in your brain and your heart. And you get this flushing effect where you might get blood flow to areas of your body that haven't had proper blood flow because of contraction, because you've either been over breathing too much, which causes contraction, or you've gone into contraction and tension and pain. So what that does is it disrupts blood flow to areas in the body, and that leads to disease. So actually a lot of healing is about letting go and turn off the stress, so you stop contracting and you start expanding. And what that does is expands blood vessels. You get blood flow to areas that haven't been oxygenated properly, and you get really good oxygenation, because what happens is your carbon dioxide levels go up, your oxygen levels of your blood go down, but that's because it's rushing into your body tissue cells, all right, and being used up, and it's kickstarting rejuvenation in those areas. What also is activated in a low oxygen environment is stem cells. Stem cells can come out of circulation and go to areas that need healing. Okay, so stem cell clinics use low oxygen as a way to activate stem cells called very small embryonic-like stem cells, which have the power to turn into any other cell in the body. So this technique, this one track, the 11-minute track, is a very, very healing journey. It's very therapeutic and very healing, and it releases a lot of tension, and you get hyperoxygenation of your body tissue cells. So what we also use is humming. In that track, we use the Om, but emphasis on the and the humming. When you hum, you stimulate nitric oxide in the paranasal sinuses. Nitric oxide is antiviral, antibacterial, lowers inflammation, and it's used to get oxygen to where it needs to go. All right, it's actually used to get oxygen to body tissue cells with carbon dioxide. They both work together on that. So nitric oxide is a really powerful healer. Okay, even in COVID right now, there are trials going on nitric oxide sprays because it's so powerful as a healer for the body, an antioxidant. So yeah, so that's the method. That's like a bit of the science behind it and why it works. And in just 11 minutes, you can feel amazing. But with deeper practice, longer sessions, you can go even deeper and deeper with this. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible to know. And the thing is, we've started working with people who have post-COVID syndrome and long-haul COVID, and we've been sending this to them as well, right? Like now I understand why it like makes recovery faster. So we weren't even sending this to our patients before, but after I met you at the summit, and then you told us about the 11-minute SoundCloud thing, I did that after I came back home. I was like, wow, this is so good. And then we started doing it for the team, right? So before we started work, we would all come into office like at 9:30. We'd all do like the 11-minute meditation, the breath work, and then get to work, right? Because I realized how free and relaxed it made you feel. And when you're healing other people, you can't be the one who's in stress all the time, right? So it really worked so well for the team, and like why we were like, why can't we do this for our clients? And that's where it really began. So this was, I think, January 2000, no, it was December 2019 that I started sharing it with our patients, and like now I know why it works so well. So thanks for sharing that. So people in India right now, see what's happening is the media is really scaring people off with this entire narrative of the virus and everything, right? And yes, there is for sure a virus around. I'm not a virus denier, right? I know there are symptoms, but it is a respiratory one. And what I've been telling people and what we've been seeing also in our work with result, the work we've done is that if your inflammation, insulin resistance, vitamin D deficiency, all of that is taken care of, you don't really have very bad outcomes. But everyone's gotten those little the thing that you showed us, right? The oxygen saturation measuring thing, and then everybody's measuring their oxygen levels all the time, and there's a lot of panic around that. That if somebody's O2 levels go below 98, then they start wondering if they have COVID without even having any other symptoms, right? So if you could shed a little bit light on that, like what is the right balance of oxygen? How does one know if they're okay, and how does not one not obsess with these little measuring devices? I know you're going to show us something cool with it. I'm waiting for that. But this is more for the people who are really afraid of what the numbers show, and then it excites them into actually manifesting a disease for themselves.
So this is like where we have a big problem in the world is misinformation and confusion on a scale that we've never seen before because of the media. The newspapers are so bad at reporting things on science factually, and they confuse people and they put fear into people. And people don't know how to use this because only like people who are experts in respiratory health will really understand how these machines work. If you get a like some kind of fact sheet from the government for the public on how to use this, what they don't tell you is that a lot of these machines don't even work properly, right? They're not accurate. And that's one factor you got to bear in mind. So they're not all the same, and there's a lot of cheap ones that come in from China that just do not work. They're terrible because I've tested them out, and when you get a good one, this is a good one, they actually are more accurate, and you need accuracy. You need medical grade numbers. Otherwise, you're going to freak out. You're going to think you're sick when you're not. Another thing is that you only need a little sip of air, like that, okay, for this to be 98% saturated. There's an abundance of oxygen. Okay, so healthy people, a little sip of air, this is going to go to 98% or even higher, right? But if you find that this starts dropping into the 80s, okay, and you're feeling breathless, okay, then that's where you may have this high altitude sickness like symptom, which is a very strange symptom for a virus, but yeah, so when it goes below 90 and continuously and you see it dropping even lower than that for long periods of time, that's when you got to worry. That's when you're going into hypoxia. But above 90, think this will fluctuate, between 98 and, it might even go down to 94 sometimes, 93, older you get, the lower it might be. Okay. But if it's only below 90 is when you got to really start worrying. And if it's for prolonged periods of time, like we're talking hours like this. But the other thing is, there was an article that I saw from a respected journal about the fact that they found that there'll be people with COVID in the hospitals whose oxygen levels go down, right? They go down, and they basically stay down, like even in their 80s for long periods, but the patient has no symptoms at all. Okay. And it baffled the doctors. They're like, why aren't they breathless? But it seems that there's a weird phenomenon where they can be low oxygen and be perfectly fine and then recover fine. But where the deaths happen on a massive scale is when the oxygens were low like this, and without checking symptoms, they were putting patients on ventilators, right? And that would kill the patients, because it's very dangerous to put patients on ventilators, the wrong ventilators. They can just mess them up and they die, right? So a lot of the deaths happen on, a big percentage of deaths happen on ventilators. So imagine if it was just faulty machines that caused people to die when they didn't need to die. Like, I mean, that's horrible to think, but it could be something as crazy as that. So, but there is this phenomenon that even though saturations are low, if they don't have symptoms, quite often patients would recover and they'll be fine and their oxygen levels will go back. And actually, this article even states that, maybe they made a lot of mistakes putting people on ventilators when they didn't need to be on ventilators. If I can find it and dig it out, I'll send it to you. But you can look it up, like whether there you could ask Google. I'm sure there's an article that talks about this. I'll find it if I can.
Yeah, I'll look for it as well. I mean, it's we've known this even from what we've heard locally within our network here, that somebody who's okay in a general ward or in a private room, and they went into the ICU and they were put on a ventilator, things just escalated really fast and they were gone, right? So we've heard stories of this, like even within my far-flung family members, I've heard this happening. But yeah, and I'll also look for the paper that you spoke of. Yeah, and we know this, right? Like often it's the treatment itself that kills a patient. Even pre-COVID, we've known this, that I can't remember the term for it, but there are these, what are these deaths called, that they're hospital induced, or it's because of a wrong treatment, or because
medical errors.
Yeah, medical errors. There's some word for it also. I can't remember that. But anyway, I mean, I don't want to go there because I don't want this to be that conversation. So the other question was, so one is of course doing your Soma breath, either the 11-minute one or the longer one. I know you have a lot of them put out on YouTube as well. But generally, what are good breathing techniques for a long and healthy life? So this is another question that came up. And as a segue to that, a lot of people wanted to know also about mouth breathing versus nose breathing, right? Like I've been following Mike Mutzel from Metabolic Mike, and he talks of mouth taping, like even in the night while sleeping, taping his mouth so that there's only nose breathing happening even in sleep. So there was a question around this. Yeah, somebody from Facebook is telling it's called iatrogenic deaths, the ones that are caused by hospital errors. Anyway, so nose breathing versus mouth breathing, is all intake of breath equal? What really happens, and what are the ways someone should practice mindful breathing through the day?
Okay, so that's probably the healthiest breathing technique you can have, which is to always breathe through your nose. Be mindful of breathing through your nose throughout the day. That itself will add years to your life, because the nose is the filter for the air. That's what we're designed to use to breathe, to inhale. And it has hairs that like conditions the air for absorption. It acts like a filter to filter the air. And also you produce nitric oxide only through nasal breathing, all right? And humming. So that you need the nitric oxide being produced. So it's all about nasal breathing. Also, it slows airflow down because, as I said, if you have too much oxygen in your bloodstream, it causes contraction, all right? And you get contraction, and if you don't have enough of the carbon dioxide, you don't get the dilation which you need. So contraction leads to hypertension, which then leads to chronic diseases, okay? And you get low blood flow to muscles and tissues. So when you reduce the breathing rate, okay, you maintain more of a optimum oxygen carbon dioxide ratio. And even just a few minutes of rhythmic breathing where you breathe in for 4 beats, out for 8 beats. So let's say music, we have music that's designed to be 1 beat every second. So 60 beats in a second. And when you breathe in time with this music, it gives the optimum oxygenation, because the ratio in the sutra, the yoga sutras, is WXL, okay, and they give some ideas of like 8 on the exhale and 4 on the inhale, and you do that as a rhythm, okay, and that turns on keeps the parasympathetic balance. You become more at rest mode, rejuvenation, and you get optimum body tissue oxygenation. So that's the rhythm we really like for maintaining throughout the day. But you can also really like make sure you're breathing diaphragmically. That's another thing to be mindful of, diaphragmatic breathing. So one way you can correct that right now is put your like left hand on your right hand on your chest, left hand on your belly, and observe when you breathe in, which hand rises first. Is it your left hand on your chest? Right hand on your chest, or left hand on your belly? And just see if you're breathing for your chest, this hand, the right hand, is going to go up first, which means you're shallow chest breathing. Shallow chest breathing leads to like erratic breathing, and it also causes you to stimulate sympathetic receptors. When you breathe through your diaphragm, you get more optimum oxygenation, and you also stimulate the parasympathetic, which keeps you more relaxed, right? It reduces tension. If you hyperventilate for your chest, you'll quickly start to feel tense, okay? And when you breathe out too much carbon dioxide too fast, you get tense. The tension is what causes disease. Remember that. Letting go, relaxing, turning off the stress response, right, is what you want to do. So that's why diaphragmatic breathing and nasal breathing is essential for that. All right. So that's the two kind of main things to be mindful of. Just doing that is going to make a dramatic impact into your health, like more than most people realize.
Thanks. And that's how babies breathe, right? Like every baby, you look at them, they're all belly breathing. No baby does shallow breath work, right? Like
Exactly.
their bellies expand and then they come in. Yeah, thanks for that. I'm sure that's going to help people. So another question, I think that's where your cool gadget is going to come in, like a breathing test that helps you determine like how healthy you are. People like doing these tests, right? But what is it that you're going to show us? I'm really curious. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking for the right moment. Okay, so let me just turn on this light first. 1 second. It's just gone dark, sunset. We had a beautiful sunset just now. Is that okay? Yes. So this gadget, okay, is actually quite a useful tool. It's an easy one to measure your heart rate as well. Okay, so you see, I've been talking a lot, and I was like breathing through my chest as well, right? And the hyperventilation and talking a lot makes the heart rate go up. Okay, so actually talking itself, if you spend a lot of time during the day talking, you need to have a break. You need to pause and go and just meditate on your breath. Don't talk. What that will do is it calms down the stress response, but also allows your body to recover from hyperventilating as you're talking. Like when you talk a lot and very fast, okay, for long periods, you also create adrenaline rush as well, and you get lightheaded feelings. So that's another. When you start feeling lightheaded when you're talking, it's time to chill it down. You know. So I'm gonna do something here. It's already a little bit fast, my heart rate. I'm just gonna try and slow it down a little bit. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send it up by 30 beats per minute and then lower it by 30 beats per minute, like the famous yogis would do. Okay. There you go. 30 beats per minute. Around 20.
That's incredible. How did you do that?
So this is something that we're told is impossible, okay? And that only the very mystic, like adept yogis who are legends can do this stuff. Well, actually anybody can do this.
You're
And
legend
actually
now.
huh?
I said you're legend now. You showed it to us.
So it's very simple. It's basic. Well, actually, it's not even basic biology because this is not something even written in textbooks. But you may have heard of as a yoga instructor or a yogi, if you're listening to this, or if you do yoga regularly, about the Mula Bandha. So the Mula Bandha, this is the area around where your sphincter muscles are, your perineum. When you contract and pull up on the Mula Bandha, you start to activate adrenaline. And if you hold your breath on the inhale, pull up the Mula Bandha, it quickly creates a burst of adrenaline, which acts like an anti-inflammatory. It kind of resets the nervous system, okay? And it's quite a powerful way to kind of create a surge, like a wake up, but you've got to use it in the right context, okay, in the right sequence. So what I did there was I engaged the Mula Bandha and held my breath on the inhale. You saw my heart rate shot up, okay? And actually some people will hold it when they're stressed, like breathe in. I do it sometimes unconsciously as well. You kind of gasp a little bit. And you might hold your breath like this and also contract your sphincter muscles a bit unconsciously when you're like really like concentrating or you're under stress and things like that. And what you're doing is you're actually stimulating the sympathetic nervous system. And you may have heard that expression, that person's so uptight, right? Or he's such a tight ass, things like that. These are people who are doing this all day long, basically. And it's causing stress, and they tend to be stressed out, nervous people. So you just saw that. But in the right context, you can use it to create a positive stress response. When you create instead of cortisol, if you produce adrenaline and DHEA, it can have an expansion effect over your body rather than a contraction. And you go into courage and optimism and passion and joy, these sorts of emotions. But when you're like under unconscious stress and you become uptight, where you're fearing something, you're stressed about completing something, that creates a negative stress. We produce cortisol and adrenaline. Okay, you can get actually paralysis out of fear. You know, people do that and they get really tense. So that's basically what's going on. But with the right breathing techniques, the right context, you can actually use adrenaline to create a very positive state of mind. The opposite of that is when you breathe out very slowly, like you're breathing out through a straw, your heart rate goes down because you're stimulate the vagus nerve. And if you even do a mantra like Om, maybe I can show you what Om does. That also calms you down as well. Let's see, I'm already a bit calm. I mean, if I do it continuously with a bit of practice, you'll just see it start going down. You know, so yeah, you saw it go down when I start humming, right?
Yes, it did. And it continued to go down even after you stopped the hum because it continued to drop down.
Yeah. So if you keep doing humming for like 15 minutes, it produces nitric oxide and it calms you down. You'll see everything harmonizes and becomes relaxed. So yeah, that's like a bit of proof on just the effects of your breath on your autonomic nervous system. So imagine the breath is the one thing that runs on autopilot, but also we have conscious control over, right? Everything else just happens behind the scenes, right? We don't think about it consciously. It just happens in the unconscious mind. But the breath is our way to tap into these things because you can also consciously control it. So pranayama is a series of techniques, okay, to tap in to the autonomic nervous system. So you can produce your own sleeping pills, you can make your own painkillers. You can turn on, you know, anti-acid if you have too much acid. You can have improve your digestion. You can, you know, go to sleep. You can do all sorts of stuff. Lower your blood pressure. You know, produce steroids. A burst of adrenaline acts like a steroid. You know, so it's like your own pharmacy with the breath and the autonomic nervous system. We just didn't get the manual.
We've seen this pharmacy effect. Like we had this lady who had come to us and her heart was just at a 20% ejection rate and like she had no energy to get through the day. So yeah, we corrected her food and stuff, but she honestly saw the most impact happen when she started including the Soma breath, the 11-minute audio, right? That's when she started seeing the most, because I think with the heart and the breath, both are so deeply connected that the work that we were doing with her gut and everything, that was taking a little longer to show results, but the breath work was instant. Like she was up and running and she's like, I didn't have so much energy for so many. I think I sent you a screenshot of that conversation with that lady once. And then we've also seen how it really helps. We had this one person who was appearing for his CA exams and he was quite stressed about it. And we just like told him do Soma breath 5 times a day, like before you study, after you study, before like you're going to go for the exam. And the effect was phenomenal, Niraj. You know, you do it once a day, you're feeling good through the day, but if you do it like this, like as a tool, just before there's some stressor that's going to come at you, I've seen how people actually respond so much better to this work, right? We've really seen results. In fact, Swati from my team, she got COVID a couple of weeks ago and she was really sick. So she just didn't do anything except like she took her supplements and stuff, vitamin D and colostrum and everything. And then she just did Soma breath about 5 times a day. And she's like, she could sleep better and she had more energy. And like, you know, she recovered in less than a week. So it's phenomenal. It really is phenomenal. She didn't need hospitalization. Her oxygen levels did drop. The first couple of days they went to 85 or something. She had low BP also. She had dizziness. But then she continued to do this because she's seen the effect it's had on her patients, right? So she didn't need to even tell her do this. She just did it on her own and she's back at work in less than 7 days. No post-COVID syndrome, no long haul
Amazing.
COVID, nothing, none of that happening, right? So
Phenomenal.
it's
That's
phenomenal.
awesome.
Yeah, and the what I realized is not enough people in India really know about. See, we have this tradition, we have this heritage of Ayurveda, of pranayama. There are a lot of people who teach it not necessarily in the most correct way. Um, Even I run away a little bit when I hear of someone being a pranayama teacher, because sometimes, you look at them and they are stressed and they're rigid and they're like high pitched, and I'm like, where is the prana in your body, right? So yeah, so
Yeah.
I really wanted more people to know about you, which is why I thought that this is the best way to do it. But if they have to find you, where would they find you? How do they get to know about your work if they have to follow you and check that out for themselves?
It's a great question. So we actually have a lot of different platforms where there's a lot of free content. So our YouTube channel, Soma Breath, our Facebook group, which is also Soma Breath, you can sign up for free. And then we have our website, somabreath.com, where we have various courses. You can also learn how to be an instructor. Our most popular courses at the moment is the Breath Fit, which teaches you all about normal breathing techniques. It gives you techniques you can do, practices you can do every day. It's very easy, simple things you can fit into your day. But in 11 days, you're going to have the most incredible changes that will stay with you for life, right? Because it's all about getting more energy. It's all about basically improving your longevity. Because with reduced breathing and using this technique of intermittent hypoxia, you actually add years to your life, because pranayama was actually developed by studying animals in nature. You look at animals that don't live a long time, they breathe very, very fast, 150 breaths per minute, like mice and rats. Elephants and turtles, they live a long time. They breathe very slow, around 4 to 8 breaths per minute, or even lower. And whales, for example, breathe less than a minute. Once an hour, right? So, and they can hold their breath for very long periods of time. So, like up to 2 hours. So, humans have the conscious control ability to control their breath. And we're a weird anomaly to this rule that we can consciously control our breath. But you've got these naked mole rats. They live up to 30 years free of disease. They live predominantly in a hypoxic environment where the oxygen levels are very low, and they can hold their breath for like 18 minutes at a time. And they literally live for 30 years, whereas normal rats live for like 1 year. So it's something about the carbon dioxide. It's something about their adaptiveness to oxygen and the length of how long they can hold their breath. This is true across the animal kingdom, all right? And humans, we can choose to be like rats, or we can be like naked mole rats, or like whales and elephants, okay? It's up to us, because we have this conscious ability to control it. And by doing so, we can actually enhance our lifespan. So these various techniques in breath fit, studies are now showing that these ancient practices actually prevent telomere length from shortening, and also dead cells from forming in your body. So basically, it reverses aging, right? Especially this Kumbhaka technique, intermittent hypoxia. When you do it in the right way, the way we teach you in breath fit, has these dramatic effects. Then we have the 21-day awakening protocol, which is very powerful course. It's 21 days long. You do it with an instructor. You go very, very deep. You first start with preparing your body and to go really deep into profound states of meditation. But you follow this intermittent hypoxic protocol, which gives you a daily dose of this intermittent hypoxia that has amazing results, because it mimics what they're doing in clinics with machines that cost thousands of dollars. It mimics the same process, but with your breath. Again, it's similar to what you get in one of the techniques in breath fit, but over 21 days. And it also teaches you meditation and about really understanding yourself, who you are, because that's another part of it. Deals with the mind. It's another part of the healing process, is knowing thyself. Okay, And in you know, with the breath, you're dealing with the hard disk, but the operating system we also deal with in the 21 days with series of exercises and questions, and it's very, very powerful course. So I recommend people do that. But I know that people who do those fall in love with what we're about and go and become instructors. So I really want to get more instructors into Soma breath from India. I want to bring back what originated India back to the Indians in a way that makes sense now, that it takes away all the dogma, takes away the mysticism, demystifies it, and actually gives you a practice which you can do every day that is enjoyable and fun. That's what my mission is. And you know, I'm ready to like spread this everywhere, you know. So yeah.
That's awesome. So whatever help you need in getting that happening in India, I'm right here, Neeraj, because you've helped our patients, right, without even knowing it. Like you just put something out there we could use, and it's made so many changes. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for that. And I think we are like, I thought we'd do this like in 30 minutes, but it's been an hour since we started.
You
So
get me going, and you ask the right
yeah,
questions, and I won't stop.
yeah, no, but it's fabulous.
Yeah. Oh, just frozen. Hello?
Yeah,
Just froze a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit.
I lost my Wi-Fi. That was like my Wi-Fi saying it's an hour.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, but I was saying we'll do more stuff together. I'm sure this is not the end of it because people really need to know this. Like they have an entire pharmacy within their body, and it's right now
100%.
it's a little crazy. Yeah, it's a little crazy out here. So the more we
Let's
can
do it.
share this knowledge,
Amazing.
it would be great.
I think you're cutting out a bit. Hello? Hi.
Okay, guys, I am back. I'm so sorry for that snafu that happened thanks to the internet. And now I officially end the broadcast. I'm sorry for the last 5 minutes. Bye bye. Thank you for being here. I can see some angry emoji from someone. I hope that's not because I really couldn't do anything about it, all right? But thank you guys for being here, and I wish I could thank Neeraj as well. Uh, it was an incredible session, all right? Bye bye.